further from the convenience.
We're gonna start this again.
Australia is a nation defined by starkness. Evoking images of the New World and mirroring the process of Western expansion, European settlers arrived on an untamed continent, pushed across vast wilderness through hostile indigenous populations, and established, then doggedly defended, a few narrow bands of
Bro, this is literally like justifiable. This is like a little bit too much, genocide, not denialism, but like worse, supporting genocide kind of. I'm sure Wendover didn't intend to mean it like that, but it does seem a lot like, the same American Manifest Destiny, pro fucking genocide attitude.
Civilization. As the years rolled forward, cascading sequences of gold rushes and increasing need for agricultural output pulled Australian society further from the convenient natural harbors where it began. With man and beast continuously working to reclaim the land they usurped, the increasingly small and informal groups of settlers on the frontier relied on their more advanced weaponry to maintain their foothold. Guns matured into a standard-issue piece of kit for those straying beyond the established towns. A century on, that reality remained. 20th century Australians continued to leave the comfortable confines of coastal cities in hope of transforming rural land into a living. Those that found themselves in this less urban life, in turn, inherited a unique culture and identity framed around individualism and rugged self-reliance. These individuals were proud of their lifestyle, providing for their families and nation through what they helped pull from the earth. Yet, even as technology advanced, nature proved unruly, and so rural Australians continued to rely on their weaponry to defend their crops or livestock or minerals from the other. Among this population, guns had become conflated with culture. They were important tools, they were pest control, they were family—
I mean, it's great. He is making a comparison to America, one that I make so regularly, and talking about how dumbfuck Americans and dumbfuck Australians come from the same fucking penal colony attitude, genocidal penal colony attitude, only to, I assume, show that a better tomorrow is possible for the dumbfuck Americans, kind of like the dumbfuck Australians did.
Heirlooms, they were security. But as urban Australia continued to develop alongside rural Australia, guns in cities and suburbs began to seem superfluous. Tools no longer worth the inherent risk of operating, and in untrained or uncertain hands, potential disasters. All the while, as this rift widened, the weapons grew more effective. The destructive potential of a minute shrunk down to a second. What was once but a cultural difference morphed into an issue. Should personal gun ownership be allowed? Was the necessity of some stronger than the risk to most, as the potential for misuse grew in step with technological development? As the century progressed, as the cosmopolitan and countryside continued to drift apart, the issue escalated, and the questions informing the issue begged for an answer. Australia's gun debate, informed by history, landscape, and legacy, intensified by growing urban-rural divide and the technology's ruthless efficiency, was at an impasse. As one exasperated New South Wales politician voiced after a futile national gun summit in 1987, quote, "It will take a massacre in Tasmania before we get gun reform in Australia." Nearly a decade later, his words proved prophetic. It was just after 1 p.m. on the 28th of April, 1996, when a 28-year-old man in a yellow Volvo entered the Port Arthur historic site. Carrying what security described as a sports-type bag through the tourist-laden formal penal colony, the man entered a busy cafe, ate a meal, then opened fire on unsuspecting tourists. Within just 90 seconds, the gunman had killed 20 people with 29 bullets. Leaving the cafe, the shooting then continued onto the streets. By the time of his capture the following day, the gunman had killed 35 and injured another 23. In the hands of the murderer throughout his rampage was a semi-automatic Colt AR-15, a weapon that, under Tasmania's uniquely hands-off gun laws, was available for purchase without a license. All told, it was the worst mass shooting in the nation's history, and while perpetrated in a far corner of the country, the sheer depravity rocked Australia to its core.
That's crazy. Does that sound familiar? Now, I'm sure they fucking turned around and said, mate, what we really need is to make sure all tourists have a fucking AR-15 too, so they can fire back. What they needed was a fucking good guy, a good fucking bloke with a gun, right? That's what they fucking needed. And then another mass shooting happened next week, and they were like, well, what we fucking need is more God and more fucking, thoughts and fucking prayers, mate. Why are you making this fucking political? That's what the Bogans said. And then another week happened where there's another mass shooting and another mass shooting and another mass shooting and another mass shooting. And then there was like 2 mass shootings a day, ultimately coming to 2 mass shootings a day where they were saying like, we need to fucking militarize the police further. And we need to make sure that we don't fucking hurt the Bobby's fucking feelings. That's the reason why they're not doing a good job, you sick cunts. And then more mass shootings kept happening. And at a point where Australia had more guns than it had people, and the most popular gun was the one that they just showed, right? And then finally they arrived at fucking door control, mate. That's what we fucking need to do. We need to do door control, mate. And that's where they're at now, right? Like that's what's going on. Don't say Bobby used coppers. Oh, Bobby is British. Sorry, coppers. Fucking copper dogs. We need to make sure that shrimps are on the fucking barbie and AR-15s are in the hands of every fucking baby. That's right. We need a fucking VB long neck and an AR-15 to defend ourselves against the fucking emus. And then, yeah, politicians would go up and say, politicians would go on television and say, like, you know, we need fucking AR-15s to shoot against the fucking untamed emus. It's just a mental health problem, mate. Prawns on the fucking barbie. It's prawns, not shrimps. Okay.
For a moment, the shocked nation stammered. Then it began to move. While the Port Arthur shooting was Australia's largest, it was far from the country's first. The Hoddle Street killings and the Queen Street massacre, just months apart in Melbourne in 1987, had set the backdrop for that year's ultimately fruitless National Gun Summit. The gun violence continued into the new decade too, with 1 or more shootings in 1990, 91, 92, and 93.